Okay, so one of the things that's coming up here is the FIFA World Cup, which I believe begins next Thursday the 11th. Yep. Um, with a game between Mexico and I think it's South Africa is what kicks it all off. And what's notable about this year's tournament, at least in my eyes, well, a few things, but number one is it's the first year of the expanded format to 48 teams from 32. It's been a 32 team tournament since I think 1998, so a little over 20 years, or the amount, because the tournament takes place every 4 years, so it's been almost 30 years. But the last tournament was 4 years ago, so it's 24 years worth of tournaments, I guess you could say, with it being 32 teams. And this year, again, they'll be expanding to 48 teams. Now, so it's for all intents and purposes doesn't really change much. Like if, for example, if you've grown up within the last 30 to 40 years, you've known it as sort of a tournament where there's groups of 4 teams, right? This year's tournament will pretty much look the same. There'll just be more groups, right? There's going to be 12 groups of 4 rather than 8 groups of 4, right? So, which I think is the right way to go. Some of the soccer purists have complained that it's or they don't like the expansion. I feel like purists in general in any sport just like resist any kind of change, right? Especially expansion. Seeing that in the college football world right now. But I think it's the right way to go to expand the World Cup because, well, just on face value, if you think about it, it's called the World Cup, right? So, um, just in general, you would want as much of the worlds included as possible, right? And if the truly best teams they're always going to rise to the top. You may have some flukes here and there, but it's not like it's the NCAA tournament where you're one and done, right? It's group stage play. So the best team is going to have multiple chances to prove they're the best in that group, as well as um, the 2 teams from each group advance. So in general, you're not going to have like the good teams miss their chance to advance to the knockout stage because of like expansion or because there's more teams in there, right? They're not adding like a bunch of variability to the field just by expanding it, just adding more groups, right? And so in general, I think it's a good thing, right? Include more countries because again, it's the World Cup, so let's have as much of the world included as possible. Okay, so let me get myself out of the way here. So it's a 48 team tournament. And I want to get into all the groups, and I'm going to make, I'm just going to try to pick my way through the tournament, make a prediction about the whole thing. Not that I'm, some expert analyst or I should really know how this is going to turn out, but before we go through the groups, I thought it'd be worth it just to review how the tournament actually works, how teams advance, right? How the group play works. So obviously, as we said, there's 48 teams total, 12 groups of 4 teams each. Each team plays every other team in their group once during group play. So you play three games during group play. Again, 1 game against every other team in your group. For winning a game during group play, you get 3 points. For a draw, you get 1 point. And obviously, if you lose, you get 0 points. Those points determine your placement within the group at the end of group play, right? The top 2 teams. Am I out of the way here? Yes, I am. Okay, so you can see this. The top 2 from each group, based on that point system, advance automatically. So from the 12 groups, top 2 from each group advance to the round of 32 automatically, right? Which is 24 teams. But obviously you need another 8 teams to make up the round of 32. So from those 12 groups, the 8 best third place finishers from those groups also advance, excuse me. And obviously once you get to the round of, so that's how you make up the 32 teams that advance to the knockout play, right? And obviously knockout play is standard tournament play. You play 1 game against a paired opponent, and I believe they'll probably seed the teams based on points, and then you'll have standard tournament seeding where like top seed plays low seed, and then it's just standard knockout play. If you win, you move on. So you have round of 32, round of 16, quarterfinal, semifinal, final. And any tiebreakers in terms of the seeding and who's advancing, they do have tiebreakers, stated prior to play, which are pretty typical tiebreakers: goal differential, goals scored, head-to-head result, head-to-head goal difference, and then it goes all the way to fair play, and then even FIFA ranking if they need to. And I believe at I think at least once in my lifetime they have had to do a tiebreaker that went all the way to fair play, which is how many yellow or red cards you've gotten. So, um, anyways, so that's how the tournament works. It's group play and then knockout play. It's pretty forgiving advancement, right? All you have to do is be one of the top two from each group. You automatically move on, and if not, you still have a pretty good shot as long as you're one of the best 8 third place finishers. That leaves really the only very unworthy teams out of the knockout round, which I think is good. Get as many teams as you can into the knockout round and give those fans a thrilling sort of one and done game to watch. Which those games are always really exciting. So that's how the tournament works. Um, and so let's take a look at the groups here. So this is, the Fox Sports website. I think most of the coverage is on Fox this year, so you can get sort of all your group information here as well as the schedule for all the games. So this is my little World Cup bracket predictor generator thing that I found online. It's the worldcupguide.com. And they have this little, widget you can use to sort of predict your way through the World Cup, which I thought was kind of cool, kind of fun to do. So let's also get this over to the side here. Make sure you can see everything. Yep. So I also had Claude sort of break down all the groups for me as well. So it'll be useful to have that information to reference as we go through the groups here. Okay, so Group A, featuring Mexico, South Africa, South Korea, and the Czech Republic. My just early read on this would be, I like Mexico. Obviously, they have some proximity to them being, a neighboring nation to my own. But also, I think Mexico is just obviously a very strong team and typically sort of the best team in the Americas, right? And they have something of a home field advantage this year. Because they're one of the host nations. So at least one of their games, at least, and I'm sure probably more than that, are going to be played like maybe on their home nation field, right? Which I don't know exactly what that is. Maybe is that Azteca Stadium or something like that. But either way, they're going to have a massive home field advantage, and those Mexican fans are rabid. So easy access to that game. They're going to fill whatever stadium that is, and they're going to give them a huge boost. So I like Mexico to advance here. Just based on just looking at these names, I would probably say South Africa second, but let's look over here. Okay, so this Claude has the underdog being Czech Republic, meaning they're sort of at least in Claude's view, the worst team in the group, with Mexico as the favorite, which is what I said. So I'm going to go ahead and pick Mexico as my number one team in that. South Korea or South Africa? I just have more faith in an African nation in terms of soccer, but who knows? Maybe South Korea is good. But I'm gonna take Mexico and South Africa to advance, South Korea and Czech Republic third and fourth in Group A. And in terms of players to watch, Claude is highlighting the winger for Mexico, Herving Chucky Lozano. So Chucky Lozano, winger for Mexico, player to watch. Haven't heard of him personally, but again, I'm not a very deep fan in the world of soccer, so not really surprising that I'm not super aware of him. So moving on to Group B, we have Canada, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Qatar, and Switzerland. Again, Canada getting that home field advantage, right? They're going to get a home game. They're going to have the home fans. However, I don't really have a lot of faith in Canadian soccer. I don't even know why I say that. I guess my only reasoning would be I don't have any faith in U.S. soccer, and I think we're better than Canada. So if the U.S. were in this group, would I have a ton of faith that we would beat these teams? I mean, maybe Qatar. I wouldn't have much faith we would beat Bosnia and Herzegovina, and I certainly wouldn't have any faith we'd beat Switzerland. Switzerland, gets into the knockout stage fairly regularly, at least in my memory. So let's look at what Claude's saying here. Okay, so yeah, Claude has the favorite being Canada. And the underdog being Qatar. So Qatar is the likely fourth place finisher in this group, at least according to Claude, which I would tend to agree with. They're a pretty small nation, and by no means like some traditional footballing nation. So, um, I would probably pick Switzerland as my number one here instead of Canada, even though Canada does have that home field. I just don't think. I mean, they have the home field advantage, right? But is Canada really a rabid soccer nation? Like, it's not going to be like Mexico where they're going to have like the craziest fans in the world with, chants and songs and costumes and streamers and props. Maybe Canada will be like that. I just don't picture it to be. I have no faith in that. So I'm going to go Switzerland 1, and then I'd probably put Canada 2. And then, yeah, I'd probably agree that Qatar's going to be last in that group, so I'll go Bosnia 3, followed by Qatar. So Group C here, just get a sip of the coffee. Okay, so let's talk about Group C here. So we have Group C, powerhouse Brazil, Morocco, Haiti, and Scotland. Which it's interesting. Scotland, for some reason, has been given a flag as their symbol. Like, and it even has it here on Claude. Huh. I'm not sure why. I mean, does that have to do with them being part of the UK? Interesting. Anyways, that just shows you how much I know about geopolitics and things like that. Okay, so Brazil, Morocco, Haiti, and Scotland, Group C. Obviously here, unmistakably, Brazil is going to be your favorite. I don't think anyone would deny that. Although Brazil has shown a propensity to struggle in the group stage. I think it was maybe last World Cup or the World Cup before. They like lost a game in the group stage. I can't remember to who, but Brazil has not been sort of the Brazil of old over the last decade and a half or so. Ever since that really embarrassing defeat to Germany. Yeah, they haven't been the same. But I'm still gonna pick them. They are still powerhouse footballing nation, and who knows? Maybe this is a new generation. I'm not familiar with really any of the players, so that'll be really interesting to see. Let's see if they've highlighted any. Oh yes, okay. So Cloud has highlighted for Brazil a forward who plays for Real Madrid, and his name is Vinicius Jr. And I always like that about the Brazilian players. They have this singular name. So this guy is Vinicius Jr. So he's a forward, again, plays for Real Madrid in his professional career, but he'll be one to watch for Brazil. They are the favorite according to Claude, and they will be my number one pick for Group C. And I will follow that with, I'll just give it to Scotland. Just, a classic sort of European nation, big, long history in football. I don't know much about Morocco in terms of their footballing prowess, and now I'm saying football. I said I was going to say soccer. I don't know much about Morocco's relationship with soccer. I assume they're pretty good given they're playing in the World Cup, but I would probably take them over Haiti. I'm not sure. Haiti is very small, so very small island nation, right? So how many people do they really have? Anyways, let's go with Morocco. Not much substance to that prediction, but I think Brazil is a safe bet for number one, and I'll take Scotland too. So that brings us to the United States group, Group D. And this is going to be a really interesting group, I think, because if the United States doesn't get out of this group, that's going to be a huge failure for us. But I think as soccer fans in the United States, we're pretty used to failure and we're used to like underwhelming performances. So, but I think, and Claude would agree. I think the United States is a safe bet as a favorite, just given they're the home nation. Again, we're going to have a ton of home fans, and the comfort of being right, in your home nation, not having to travel far, being able to get that, that extra edge and preparation because you have proximity to where you're going to be playing and the adaptation to the environment and all that. I'm sure they're training out wherever they're going to be. It's I think their first game is going to be in LA at SoFi Stadium. So yeah, I'm sure they've been training in LA for months. So they've been in the environment. They're going to have the fans. And let's be real, it's not like these teams are huge threats, right? You have Paraguay, Australia, and Turkey, which, in my memory are all decent soccer nations, but certainly haven't been powerhouses. I'm not sure if there's a World Cup between the three of them. So Claude has Turkey being the underdog here. Um, I would probably tend to agree with that. I would probably take Paraguay over Australia just because Paraguay is a South American nation and the football football the soccer culture down in South America is just insane. So and I'm sure they're pretty crazy about soccer in Australia, but I know they also are very their sport interests are actually very diverse in Australia as well. I know they really like basketball. They really like American football as well. So, are they really, is their talent as concentrated in soccer as, let's say, a Paraguay, which who also have that like sort of impoverished um, edge where they're one of those nations where they have those impoverished areas where like the kids all they have to do all day is like play soccer, right? They don't have like cell phones or movie theater. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm probably not explaining that particularly well, but my point is the soccer culture in some of those impoverished nations is extremely rich simply because it's all the kids really have to do, and that's the only path they can see as far as like getting out of their impoverished situation, right? So I would probably take Paraguay, followed by Australia, followed by Turkey. And to me, Australia or Turkey is those could be interchangeable. I'm not sure Australia's all that good. Could be wrong about that though. Um, and obviously, players to watch in this group. We have our star forward, um, who plays for AC Milan on the United States team, Christian Pulisic, who's been our star for quite a long time now. Had a great goal in the last World Cup that helped us do whatever we did. It wasn't much. So he'll obviously be a player to watch in that group. Okay, so moving on to Group E. We have Germany, Curacao. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I would say Curacao, Ivory Coast, and Ecuador. I think obviously Germany is going to be your favorite in that group. Um, I think Ivory Coast has a young striker. I know they used to have a very famous striker whose name eludes me right now, but they always had this great tall fellow who was a very good striker. But they have another one. Oh, Claude should have it here. Let's see here. Okay, so players to watch here in this group, and it does have Germany as a favorite with Curacao as the underdog. Um, oh yes, Haller. Haller is the striker for Ivory Coast. So Sebastian Haller, very good striker, plays for Dortmund in Germany, and then obviously Germany's going to have a ton of star players, but Claude is highlighting Wirtz. Florian Wirtz, attacking mid, who plays for Bayern Leverkusen. So, two very notable players here to watch in this group. Again, Germany, Ivory Coast, Ecuador, and Curacao. I'm going to take Germany first, Ivory Coast second, Ecuador third, Curacao fourth. Moving on to Group F, we have Netherlands, Japan, Sweden, and Tunisia. Right off the bat, looking at these groups, I'm gonna say Netherlands is probably gonna be my top dog, followed by Sweden. Just two European nations with a rich, soccer history and high expectations. Other two nations being, Japan has been decent at football has been decent at soccer at times, but has never really shown a great commitment or huge interest in soccer, and they're another nation with diverse sports interest, right? They have a huge baseball league there, a basketball league, um, and also, the Japanese are big in the Olympic sports as well, right? They love the snowboarding, race car driving, things like that, right? So I don't have a ton of faith in Japanese soccer over these two, what I would say like mid-tier European soccer nations, right? They both have formidable professional leagues of their own right, and they produce just a lot of good players, and are perennially in this tournament and advancing. So in Group F, I'm going to take Netherlands followed by Sweden, and Claude does agree with that. Having Netherlands as the favorite and Tunisia as the underdog, so I'll agree with Claude there. I'll take Japan third, Tunisia fourth. And yes, and Gakpo. Gakpo is obviously the forward to watch for the Netherlands team. Excellent forward for plays for Liverpool in the Premier League, and so he'll be on the field for the Netherlands. You want to keep an eye on him. And what I love about the Netherlands is they have those bright orange uniforms, right? Those are the best uniforms in the tournament. Just bright orange. You just know exactly who you're watching right when you turn it on. Okay, so Group G: Belgium, Egypt, Iran, and New Zealand. I think the clear favorite in this group has got to be Belgium. Again, another long time. You could almost call it a powerhouse soccer nation. Although I'm not sure if they've ever won a World Cup. They could have. Not really that important, but they've been a perennial producer of not only good teams but big names that you're aware of. Um, and one of which is obviously Kevin De Bruyne, right? He's probably one that many of you have heard of, but there's a lot of other ones as well, and they're escape. I'm not the biggest soccer fan, so coming up with the names of players that have played in past years is not the easiest for me. I'm more like a guy where if you mention one, I'd recognize it, but De Bruyne is obviously one that many people will recognize. The Belgian midfielder plays for Man City. He's getting a bit older now. I'm not sure how much of an impact he's going to have, but he's certainly been an excellent player throughout his career, and it'll be interesting to watch him play for Belgium. Um, Claude has New Zealand as the underdog here. I would probably disagree and say Iran. Just because is Iran not in the middle of a extremely tenuous geopolitical area right now, right? Like, um, I mean, yeah, I think obviously they are. So, I mean, they're the target of war by the United States. So, are they going to be super focused? Is this and who knows? Maybe that's ends up being a huge uplifting factor for them, but could it also be very distracting and could maybe they have had some difficulty like in their preparation or had some hiccups or just related to that. Um, yeah, so I would probably put Iran fourth. Between New Zealand and Egypt, it's tough to say. I'd probably just go Egypt just because Claude had New Zealand as their clear underdog. So I'll take Belgium and Egypt to get out of the group with New Zealand third and Iran fourth. Moving on to Group H, we have Spain, Cape Verde, Saudi Arabia, and Uruguay. So I'd take Spain first for obvious reasons. Traditional European soccer nation. I'd probably go Uruguay second. You know, long time, rich history in soccer. South American nation again with that sort of what I call the poverty edge. Like Brazil and like Paraguay, they're gonna have a lot of young kids that were in poverty that did nothing but play soccer. Growing up, and also, will have had to have fought and, dealt with struggles their entire life, which can give you an edge in sports, right? You see it in the United States. Um, so I'd go Spain one, Uruguay two, probably the Saudis three, just because the Saudis have developed quite a sort of infrastructure for sports and sport development in their country. They spent a ton of money on sports and sort of updating um, their sports capabilities, right, and investing in sports. So I think you could see some of that bear fruit, and I could think they could do decently, maybe sneak into the knockout stage as a third place finisher. But I'd give that group to Spain, followed by Uruguay, followed by Saudi Arabia, and then Cape Verde. And um, Claude pretty much agrees. Oh, players to watch here. Um, Pedri, midfielder, who plays for Barcelona. I'm not familiar with that name. Interesting. So Pedri, a midfielder for Barcelona, will be playing for Spain. And then a Liverpool striker, Darwin Nunez, who I think I have heard that name before, but again, haven't been watching much Premier League recently, so not sure how good he is, but obviously, if Claude's highlighting him as a player to watch, that should be pretty interesting. So Darwin Nunez for Uruguay, a striker who plays his professional play for Liverpool. So that's Group H. Okay, so Group I. Oh, very interesting group. France, Senegal, Iraq, and Norway. Claude has France as the favorite. I think that's pretty obvious. I will agree with that. Senegal we just beat, so it's not that doesn't reflect great on the United States. We just beat them in like a friendly or some sort of preliminary match to the World Cup. Um, I'm not sure what that match was, but yeah, we did just play them uh, last week, I think, or the other day, and we beat them, I think, 3-2. So that's not great. Losing to the United States. Um, so I'll take France as my number one. Um, Claude has Iraq as the underdog. I'd probably take Norway as the number two. Although I don't have a ton of faith in Norway. It's pretty small. It's very north, right? I think of Norway as more of a hockey nation, snowboarding, cross country skiing, things like that, right? But they are right there in Europe, so I'm sure there is some of that that soccer influence. So I'll go France, Norway, and again, I just Senegal lose to the United States, so I'll go Iraq third and Senegal fourth. And obviously, with France playing, you're gonna have Kylian Mbappe. So he's oh, and it's Hurling Holland as well for. Oh, okay. So this just shows you my lack of soccer knowledge. Norway has Erling Haaland. So I was completely wrong about that. Obviously, they do. Any team that has Erling Haaland, who's he's star striker from Man City. If you're not aware, just a fantastic, huge guy, athletic guy, and he's just a fantastic striker. Scores a lot of goals with volleys and heads and off of set pieces and things like that, as well as moves and runs within the box. So um, that is an excellent group to watch. You have Kylian Mbappe. Oh, and I got an ad going on YouTube here. Let's get that. Um, but yes, that is an excellent group to watch. Kylian Mbappe, striker for France, and Erling Haaland, striker for Norway. So that'll be a great game when France plays Norway. That's one of the great groups. So France first, Norway second, Iraq third, Senegal fourth for Group I. Group J, we have Argentina, Algeria, Austria, and Jordan. Obviously, Argentina, Lionel Messi's team, defending champions of the tournament. I think repeating in the World Cup is pretty rare. I want to say the last time it happened was maybe Brazil, like back in like the 50s or 60s. Again, I could be wrong about that, but I know it is very rare to do, so I would probably bet against that. However, them repeating as champions, however, they will likely get out of the group, just on the backs of players like Messi and then, a number of other good players that they have on their team that I don't know the names of, but Argentina supplies quite a few different players for different teams in the Premier League and the La Liga and the different professional leagues overseas. So I would expect them to get out of the group fairly easily. So I'll put them as number one. Claude has Jordan as the underdog here, which I would probably agree with that. I'm not really aware of much of a soccer history with the country of Jordan. That could just be me having blind spots, but so I won't take them number two. Let me correct that here. Algeria or Austria? Claude is highlighting Marcel Sabitzer as a player to watch, a midfielder for Austria, who plays for Dortmund in his professional career. Algeria is usually a pretty strong African nation, though. I'll take Algeria too. Okay, so let me redo this here. Yep, Algeria 2, and I'll take Austria 3. Austria would probably sneak in as a best 8 third place finisher into the knockout stage. And I'll take Jordan 4th in that group. Okay, and I screwed something up here, so let's try this again. Argentina 1, Algeria 2, Austria 3, Jordan 4. Okay. So Group K, we have Portugal, Democratic Republic of Congo, Uzbekistan, and Colombia. I think the obvious choices here are probably going to be your Portugal and Colombia for your 1 and 2. Which one is 1 and which one is 2? That's tough for me to say. What does Claude think about it here? Okay, so Claude likes Portugal as the favorite. Oh, because they're going to have Ronaldo, right, playing in his final tournament. So, or what would probably be his final tournament, right? So they're highlighting, and then they're also highlighting, as well as Ronaldo, James Rodriguez, the Colombian midfielder who plays for Rayo Vallecano in the Spanish La Liga. So I would probably agree with that. Although Ronaldo's getting getting pretty old. So will they just tear through this group? I'm not so sure. I'd probably take Colombia number 1, Portugal 2, Uzbekistan or Congo. Claude has the underdog being Uzbekistan. I'll just agree with that. I'll take Congo 3rd and Uzbekistan 4th. Okay, so Group L, the final group. Oh, you've got England. Oh yeah, so this must have to do with the UK thing with the flag symbol, right? Because every other country has letters but Scotland and England. So I'll take England as my number 1 here. I'm partial to England, and I'll explain that, in a few minutes here when I get into another aspect of this. But I'll take England number 1. I'd probably take Ghana too. Ghana's usually very strong, one of the stronger African nations, right? I remember they were the team that knocked us out a few years back, or did we just barely beat them? I can't remember, but I know Ghana. We faced them in a knockout round, and they were good. I mean, they had some really skilled players. They beat us on like some really like sick plays where they like had like volley strikes on our net. Croatia, I believe, has their that old famous player. Yep, Luka Modric, right? So the Croatian midfielder Luka Modric, he's been around forever, playing for Real Madrid, and this will be his last World Cup. And they're also mentioning Jude Bellingham for England as a midfielder to watch, who also plays for Real Madrid. And Cloud likes England as the favorite as well, and has Panama as the underdog. Yeah, it's tough. Do I want to take Croatia because of, Luka Modric is old. Is he going to have a huge impact on this tournament? I don't think so. Let's take Croatia 3rd and Panama 4th, which brings us to our 3rd place team selection. So we have to select 8 3rd place teams that we think are going to get in as well to fill in those last 8 spots into the round of 32. This is tough. This is going to be really sort of me just shooting in the dark. I just don't know enough about these teams, but it'll be fun anyways, just to make some selections. So let's go with, I think Saudi Arabia will probably get through. Probably let's go with Croatia, Luka Modric. Japan typically will have a good striker. Austria is a good old European soccer nation. The Aussies maybe? Ecuador, South America. These countries are really small. Morocco, let's grab them. Congo. Yeah, let's throw the Aussies in. And then I think Bosnia is typically, sound. So let's grab Bosnia. So that brings us to our filled-in round of 32, which I think I'm going to save for another video. Once we get out of the group stage and we know sort of how my picks were, then at that point I can review my picks, redo them, and then make predictions for the knockout rounds of the tournament. So we'll save picking the knockout stages for now. Let's just dive into the U.S. men's national team a little bit and their group. So as we said, they are in a group with Australia, Paraguay, and Turkey. And all we have to do is be one of the top 2 teams in this group to advance, or one of the best 3rd place finishers. I think we'll probably advance as one of the top 2 teams. Either way, there's a good shot that we advance through one of the 2 methods. But if we didn't get in as one of the top 2 teams in our group, that would be somewhat disappointing, right? But it wouldn't be all that surprising, just because the United States tends to be somewhat disappointing in soccer, and that's a whole nother story. It's continuously baffles me why the United States can't get their act together in soccer. I understand it's not as popular as the other sports, but I feel like that's not a great excuse for us not being any good in soccer. I feel like the United States is not good in soccer because we have some level of just pure incompetence in terms of selecting the people to lead us forward. It just seems like the coaches that we hire, the people that are in charge, the program that they're running, or the system they've assembled, is just not producing a great product. It's just, And even throughout years of investment and development, it just seems like the United States struggles to take big steps forward, right? It feels like we're always on this little the edge of being good or the edge of being relevant, but still somewhat embarrassing, and often having these sort of these fallbacks and these regressions that are just like, sort of inexplicable. And I don't buy the popularity thing because, oh, you can say there's other sports that are way more popular in the United States. I don't really buy that because tennis isn't all that popular in the United States, but we still have athletes that can compete at the highest level, right? Coco Gauff, Serena Williams. I'm not really sure on the men's side if we really have anyone that's all that relevant, but I'm sure there are a couple that are, competitive pros. Think about like track and field, right? It's not like that's a super popular sport, but we dominate a lot of the events when it comes to like the Olympics or, world competition. So I don't think popularity is really necessary for us to be competitive on the world level. And then also, if you just look at the youth pipeline, the youth soccer pipeline in the United States is super vibrant, right? Like there's tons, I don't, depending on where you grow up, it varies, but like there's widespread youth soccer in the United States. It's not like this sport that struggles, right? It's right there with football in terms of being an extremely popular youth sport in the United States. In the town that I grew up in, we didn't even have a football team. All we had was a soccer team, right? So there's plenty of youth soccer development, and there's quite a pipeline to produce players to go and compete, and to vitalize our national team, but it just doesn't seem to result in, again, big steps forward or great success. So it's somewhat baffling. It's disappointing because the World Cup is one of the coolest events, and it sucks. It sucks as Americans going in to the event knowing it's just not likely we're going to compete. Um, with the other teams, at least as late into the competition. But even in the group play, sometimes we end up super disappointed. It's like we barely win a game, or we get like mostly like ties, or we lose unexpectedly. I'm not sure that this year is shaping up to be anything different as far as the United States men's national team goes. Our group is somewhat favorable, and obviously the advancement parameters are favorable. But so we open up on June 12th, next Friday, against Paraguay, and that's going to be a tough game. So we can take a look here at at least what Claude believes our starting lineup to be, right? And it's a lot of names that you're not super familiar with. The U.S. men's national team has come back quite a bit in terms of fielding players that we all like know and love, right? Like if you think back to like Landon Donovan, Josie Altidore, Clint Dempsey, Tim Howard, right? Like when I was growing up, these players had some status in pop culture, right? Like you knew them and you heard about them just by watching sports. In the case of a lot of these players on this team, that's it's not they're not really quite as they don't really have quite as much of a profile as I would say players from past generations. What that really means, who knows? But I feel like the player that everyone probably knows is our forward Christian Pulisic, who plays for AC Milan. But at least in terms of having players that play in real professional leagues, just from looking at this chart, we do have quite a few, right? Like we have players from Villarreal in La Liga, Crystal Palace English Premier League, Fulham English Premier League, Bournemouth English Premier League, Juventus I think is the Italian Serie A. Pulisic plays for AC Milan in the Serie A. Tillman, another forward up front, plays for Leverkusen. So we at least do have players of at least the European professional league caliber, which I think is good. One of our weaknesses, I would say, this year, at least in my opinion, is going to be our goalkeeping. Our main goalkeeper, at least Claude believes our starting goalkeeper is going to be Matt Freese. But I think it's notable all of our goalkeepers are MLS goalkeepers, which is just it just doesn't give you a good feeling, right? Like you'd rather have a goalkeeper that's like has an established tenure in like the real professional leagues overseas. But and then also we have our left back plays in the MLS as well. Tim Ream, I believe it is. Yeah. who they're highlighting as. Oh no, so that's just World Cup. So the blue names here on this chart all have World Cup experience. So you can see we do have some World Cup experience, a decent amount, I would say, right? However, what does that really mean, right? Like I feel like most of the countries in the World Cup are going to have a decent amount of World Cup experience. Some of them may have every single one of their players with World Cup experience. We have 3 of our players who Claude presumes will be starting that don't have any World Cup experience. So that's a bit concerning. So I think defensively and in goal we may have some weakness here with with the presence of these MLS players, and then just no real goalkeeper that we're all that certain of. But I think we could have, our strength could be our attacking force, right? Obviously we have Pulisic, the established, attacker or forward from AC Milan that, anyone that follows U.S. men's national team is aware of. Scored a big goal for us in the last tournament, and is just, a pretty well-known professional player. But I think another guy to watch or be aware of is this Balogun guy. I don't know, what is his name here? I have a video of him here. Okay, so let's make this bigger. Okay, so Folarin Balogun. And this was the game, I believe this was the game this past week against Senegal that we played, maybe just some sort of friendly to prepare for the World Cup, but he scored a goal. Pretty good.
Brought down by Scally, linking up there with Burholt. Wide to the right, it comes for Ware. Ware's ball towards McKennie. Ware continuing the run down the right side. Options in the middle. Balogun is one of them. It's Balogun! Balogun gets his goal! And the United States are back in front.
Look at his thighs. Look at his thighs. Like, jeez.
And the United States
the
are
hoss.
back in front.
So, exciting player.
Watch his footwork from
Beautiful touch.
One touch. That second touch was
That's what you need, right? We need someone in there. We need someone up front with a taste for scoring, with a knack for scoring that just, gets anything on it and just puts it by when we need him to, when it's bouncing around in there, right? And I'm sure to anyone that actually watches soccer, that that statement just sounds so like primitive and stupid, but we need someone with some competence up front besides Pulisic that can, that's good at taking those dribbler balls and the one that's, squibbing around in the box tight in there and just gets a foot on it and, pokes it in. Someone with a little hustle, a little heart. So hopefully Balogun is that guy. So I think our attacking force could be pretty good between Balogun and Pulisic, which could make it more fun to watch, right? If that's sort of what we're relying on, scoring goals. If that actually happens, it'll make watching the United States games extremely fun. So the other thing to note about the United States is that this will be this coach's first time coaching the team through a World Cup, right? So his name is Mauricio Pochettino. And he was hired in September 2024 as Greg Berhalter's successor. He debuted on October 12, 2024 with a 2-0 win over Panama. His record through 24 games, 13 wins, 9 losses, 2 draws. He guided the U.S. men's national team to a 4th-place Nations League finish in March of 2025 and a runner-up Gold Cup finish in July of 2025 before back-to-back losses to Belgium 5-2 and Portugal 2-0 in March 2026 friendlies before those losses tempered expectations. So, and his previous experience, with a number of clubs in Europe, including Espanyol, Southampton, Tottenham, reached the 2019 Champions League final with PSG. Oh no, with Tottenham reached the 2019 Champions League final. And that's notable that he did that with Tottenham, because I think Tottenham has actually been recently relegated out of the Premier League or something like that. They've been terrible. So, that's a notable achievement there. With PSG in the 2020s, he won the French Cup. With Chelsea 2023 and 24. Didn't do anything notable, but was the manager for Chelsea the 2023-2024 season. And he's known for his high-energy pressing systems and building strong team culture. So anyone that's a fan of the United States men's national team, we are totally used to this turnover in coaching. We're used to having a new coach in damn near every World Cup. and we're used to being disappointed by them all, right? Like that seems to be the number one thing that just plagues this team is we can never really find a coach that seems to give us that magic and really get us over that edge. So I think that is something to watch here to see if this guy's style or this guy can have a real, really put his thumbprint, put his mark on this team and take us to that next level that everyone's obviously desiring. Now, the other side of that for the United States is if they were to not advance out of this group, if they were to lose in the group stage, that would be an extremely disappointing failure for this team. And my guess is probably would result in the firing of this coach. Let me shut off this damn YouTube video. YouTube ad. Skip. So, anyways, this coach is hoping to avoid that. I think if he gets out of the group, that will at least be meeting expectations, right? And I think advancing to the quarterfinal would be a good goal for the United States. That's advancing out of the group stage, winning the round of 32 and the round of 16, right? Because that would leave you with the round of 8, 4, 2, yeah, so quarter, semi, yeah. So I think getting to the quarterfinal, meaning winning the group stage or advancing out of the group stage, winning the round of 32 and winning a round of 16 game would be a great achievement for the United States. That would be, I would say, moderately exceeding expectations. Now, obviously, everyone wants to win the whole tournament. If we could get to, if we could win a quarterfinal game and be one of the final 4 teams, that would be amazing. But I don't think any reasonable United States men's team fans would expect that. However, I think, a good goal would be getting to that quarterfinal match. And I think it's somewhat reasonable, right? Like you would be somewhat exceeding expectations, but I think it's a reasonable goal and something to strive for this team. And again, to not advance from the group stage would be the ultimate failure, right? But as United States soccer fans, we're used to pretty disappointing failures. So I'm not sure it would be all that surprising if that happened. Well, it would be surprising, but we're used to being surprised by disappointment as U.S. soccer fans. I think my favorite part of the World Cup is actually not watching the United States men's national team. Although I do love watching the team and I love watching us win. I'm just so used to like tempering my expectations for that. I think my favorite part of watching the World Cup is actually watching the nations that come out in such full force that are like powerhouse soccer nations that actually have huge expectations about like winning and at a minimum doing this, doing that, getting to the quarterfinal, whatever it is. When they suffer just the most unexpected, embarrassing defeat, I just find that so entertaining. I don't know why. Like, I just think it's so funny watching these arrogant soccer nations get taken down a peg or two. Probably just because I'm a bitter U.S. fan, but if you think about like the Brazil suffering that like 6-1, was it 6-1, 7-1 defeat to Germany 10, 15 years ago in the final, when they just completely didn't expect that, or was it a semifinal? I can't remember, but everyone knows what I'm talking about. When Brazil got whooped by Germany, just completely destroyed in the most like unexpected fashion, and Germany won the World Cup, and the Brazil fans were literally like they were so devastated. It was like their world was completely rocked. They were all just like bawling, which I know sounds terrible and I think that's funny, but there's just something about it that I find sweet. And then I also think of France's loss to Italy when they lost in penalty kicks, and it was like in the extra time Zidane got that red, just completely melted down, like headbutted the dude, got the red card, and then Italy went on to defeat France in penalty kicks. And France was just completely devastated. And France is obviously another nation with a ton of pride around football and have won a number, I think, 2 or 3 World Cups. So, they have a lot of pride around the event, and they go in every year expecting to compete for the final and win. So when those teams get taken down a peg or two or just get like this crushing blow, I just find that really entertaining. For lack of having a team in the United States to really count on winning or expect to win, that's sort of what I find really entertaining. So that's what I'll be watching for, as well as hoping and wishing like everyone else, that the U.S. can pull something off. We'll pray for Pulisic. We'll pray for Balogun to get something done, and hopefully that goalkeeper Freeze, MLS goalkeeper, can just stand on his head and just have like the tournament of his life. So yeah, we'll review my picks. We'll see how I did, and then we'll make more picks for the the knockout stages. So appreciate anyone listening, and I'll be back with a video for the round of 32.